Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Today's gonna be main slate for DraftKings. If my voice sounds a little bit different, it's because I kind of lost it today. So hopefully it doesn't sound too weird. I can't really tell myself, but just feels a little scratchy. But anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate that. We're super close to 1,000, like really close. We're above 980 right now, so we're gonna hit that pretty soon. So I really appreciate all the support. And also, speaking of that, if you'd like to support me even more, I have my Patreon, and we just got over 20 Patreons. I think we're at 22 right now, so I really appreciate all of you that are on there. If you want access to my spreadsheet I do here, this cheat sheet, and then I have a pitching model with projections and a hitting model with projections and all the stats you need for every slate. And I also do updates throughout the day, so I'll put any updates on there that I feel like you guys would need. I do top home run calls for high price guys, mid range, and low, the cheap guys. And then I do optimal cash game pitcher pairings, GPP pairings, and just some other cool stuff on there for those of you who are on Patreon. And you can also get access to all my other spreadsheets as well. So if any of you are interested, I will leave the link in the description below. And yeah, so let's get into the spreadsheet, or the cheat sheet, I should say. So there really isn't a high-end pitcher I'm interested in. There is Giolito, who has been actually absolutely awesome. But facing the Red Sox, I'm going to just stay away and just hope he doesn't absolutely go off. But for cash games, I don't care if he goes off because no one's going to own him. So maybe for GPP he's interesting, but I'm not going to be doing it. I am going to be living in this high mid-range. I wouldn't say like just mid-range plays because that's 7K, but I really like the high mid-range here with John Gray. Let's talk about him first, 9,800. He's a good pitcher with very respectable numbers, and that's with half his games in cores. So I mean, when you look at his overall numbers, I mean those are inflated a little bit because of cores, but good pitcher, and it's a soft matchup versus San Francisco and a great pitcher's park in San Francisco. So very interested in John Gray as my SP1. Then SP2, Eduardo Rodriguez. He's a heavy favorite going against the White Sox, and he's on 8,700. He's been getting unlucky this year. His ERA is like over a run higher than his xFIP. And he is allowing the least amount of hard contact on the slate at only 29%. So he's getting a lot of ground balls. Just getting a little unlucky this year, but facing a White Sox team that's heavy in strikeouts, I am very interested in Eduardo Rodriguez, and he should be able to pick up the win. And then CC Sabathia at 7,100. Not a ton of upside here. I think I said Eduardo Rodriguez is a heavy favorite. I don't think that's true. I think I was thinking of the Yankees. But I do think he's a favorite, but I just wanted to make that clear. Anyway, CC, he's pretty cheap, but there's not a ton of upside here. But I think he can get by with a quality start versus a Toronto team we like using lefties against. So no problem putting go with CC if you want to get some extra savings. And he's the heavy favorite. I think he's at negative 240 at the moment. And then at catcher, we have JT Realmuto at 3,900. He's too cheap here, below 4K. He's just a good guy. He's just better than that. And I like the Phillies versus Mets. I don't know if any of you remember that earlier start in the year, the Phillies versus Mets, but it did not end well for Mets. And hoping that we see some more of the same of that. And he's just allowing a lot of hard contact to both sides of the plate. So I don't mind the lefties here. I don't have any of the lefties listed, but I wouldn't mind using Bryce Harper or Jay Bruce as well. And then Tyler Flowers for the Braves at 3,800. Always like him versus lefties, and the wind is blowing out pretty hard in Wrigley. So I looked at dailybaseballData.com, and I look at their weather before I use this because I don't want to miss any important weather like Wrigley, or because the wind is very important there. And as of right now, it says the wind is going to be blowing out center to right, but mostly the center at 60 miles per hour. And in Wrigley, that's a big deal. So I can see the run totals being huge in this game, maybe at 11 over under. So I really like the Braves and the Cubs, but yeah, so just like them both. And Tyler Flowers versus lefties is always pretty good. And then Danny Jansen, if we're punting, you guys know I play him almost every single day. This opens up the entire lineup, but I'm really wanting to get up to one of those two other catchers. But if I have to punt with Jansen, it won't be the worst thing in the world. But I also don't want to play him versus my own pitcher, so that's why I'm going to try to really get up to the other two. Then in the first base, Anthony Rizzo at 4,600. Teheran is an easy guy to dissect, although he has been pretty good this year. But I want to play the lefties versus him for the most part and avoid the righties. But with the wind blowing out in Wrigley, everyone's pretty much in play, but I do prefer the lefties the most, and Anthony Rizzo really stands out, especially at that price at 4,600. All the Cubs are priced down pretty well, so DK is giving a lot of respect to Teheran, but the wind should overcome that as long as they can barrel up on the ball. And with the wind blowing out, a lot of flyouts, to deep in the outfield, those turn to home runs. So that's why when the wind's blowing out, we really like getting batters in there. Then Rhys Hoskins at 4,500, like the Phillies, like I said, versus Matson. I think they're a little underpriced, and Rhys packs a lot of power in his bat. I do like him usually more versus righties, but versus lefties this season, he has been hitting very well. Then Bobby Bradley, 3,700. This may be just a bias pick for me as I'm an Indians fan, as I see I have a Cleveland against the world shirt. I did a horrible job of showing you guys that, but that's what it says. And he's nicknamed the Assassin, and if you don't know who he is, he's one of the Indians' hyped up top prospects. He's been killing it in the minor leagues. And Keller just isn't a good pitcher, and he's got a really low K rate, so I really like the Indians, and I wanted to point out Bobby Bradley. And then second base, Jason Kipnis, a 4K, facing a below average righty. I'm interested, especially with the spot in the order, and he's really picked it up at the plate recently. He's been hitting very well. And then Ozzie Albies at 4,300. I know he has a really bad spot in the order, but he's a much better hitter versus lefties. I think he only has like a 4% K rate versus them, so that's pretty good. And he's got a pretty high ISO too. And we know he's got speed as well. And he's got some good BVP versus Lester too. He's 5 for 5 with 1 home run, so and a walk. So technically 6 at bats. So Albies has seen him well. And then I don't usually just like using BVP as a stat, but when the matchup works out and the BP lines up, I like using those both. And then Nicky Lopez at 3,400, cheap in a good spot in the order versus Plutko. And then third base Nolan Arenado at 5K. The ballpark sucks. I mean, it's definitely not a huge downgrade from Coors. It's probably one of the biggest downgrades you can make. But like I said, the ballpark sucks, but hey, so does Pomeranz, so it's good. Nolan crushes left-handed pitching, and Palm lets righties crush him, so it makes a lot of sense there. And he should go under-owned, especially in San Francisco. I mean, I wouldn't call him a cash game play, but he's definitely in play for GPPs. And here's probably your cash game play, Josh Donaldson at 4,300, wind blowing out, and he's always been good versus lefties. And he's been chalked the past couple days, so I wouldn't mind going with him. And then Jose Ramirez at 3,900. Like all these Indians versus Keller, and J. Ram is still capable of big games even though he's been disappointing this season, but he's still had his games where he's picked it up. And then at shortstop, we have Frankie Lindor at 4,900. Again, I should say with Jose Ramirez, he has a low K rate, and so does Keller, so I mean, he should be able to put the ball in play, just hopefully it doesn't go straight to the third baseman like usual seems like. And then shortstop Frankie Lindor. I like getting him below 5K, and I like the Indians stack at home. They're a good hitting team at home. Always play well there, and Frankie is their best player. So if you're going to stack the Indians, you can't just leave Frankie off. And Dansby Swanson at 4,300, crushing lefties this season over 300 ISO, and like I said, one's going to be blowing out, so like that. Then Gene Segura at 3,900. He's got over 300 ISO versus lefties this season, and I like the Philly stack a lot. And then in the high-priced outfield, Ronald Acuna, he's my favorite play of the entire slate. I will put him in all my lineups at 4,800. My number one, just read that. But he's got the power and speed upside, that wind blowing out. Definitely like it a lot. Then Jorge Soler, this is kind of an off-the-wall one, but 4,900. He's crushing righties this season with over 320 ISO, and Plutko loves giving up the long ball, especially to righties, so I think the stars are aligning there. And I do like Soler as a low-owned GPP play. And then Austin Riley, 5,300. I will say he's overpriced, but in a limited sample size this season of 33 at bats, he has over 500 ISO, and he loves to strike out, which is the problem. But he's got tons of power. And then in the mid-range outfield, Michael Conforto at 4,600. So I'm seeing two different things. I'm seeing Eflin's going to pitch tomorrow, and I'm also seeing Arrieta's pitching tomorrow. My model uses Fangraphs probable pitchers to pull data from, and it pulled in Arrieta, so that's what I went with. But either way, it's the same thing. Eflin's bad versus lefties, and so is Arrieta. But they're both pretty decent versus righties. So same thing applies no matter who is the pitcher. But I would prefer it being Arrieta because Eflin's a little bit better. But simple play, great numbers versus righties, and Arrieta/Eflin is not that good versus lefties. And then I also have the Yankees outfield here. I know Aaron Judge is 5K, but Stanton's 45 and Aaron Hicks is 38, and just Sanchez has been awful this year, and he has a low K rate, which is great for guys like Judge and Stanton, and also like Hicks, like I said. And Chris Bryant at 4,500. I said I like the lefties better, but just usually don't see him at this cheap of a price, and I really like the offense from this game. And then in the value outfield, we have Kyle Schwarber at 3,900. One of my favorite plays of the slate as a lefty leading off versus Teheran and this wind. And then Jason Hayward at 3,500, cheap lefty and Riley versus Teheran. And if we look at some of the core plays, I have John Gray and Erod. Those are my 2 pitchers most likely. I can't see that changing. And then in the outfield, I have Acuna and Schwarber, 2 of my favorite plays. And like I said, the impactful weather, it's just the wind's blowing out in Wrigley. It's a big deal, especially at 16 miles per hour is what I'm seeing. And then the yellow stuff you see right there, that's some of the stuff, some of the extra stuff I do in Patreon. But then you also get the access to my model and all that too. But just a little bit something extra I do for those of you who are on there. And then the top stacks for me can be the Braves, the Indians, the Phillies, the Yankees, and the Cubs. Alright guys, that's all I have for the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that. Let's get me to 1,000 really soon. That'd be pretty awesome. And yeah, I think I said everything you say. So best of luck tomorrow. And yeah, just